Have you ever wondered why we need firewalls, antivirus software, and passwords for everything online? Why hackers can steal your data, scammers can pretend to be your bank, and viruses can spread across millions of computers. Everyone says it's because bad people exist and we need protection. But here's what nobody tells you about what's actually happening. The internet was designed by a small group of researchers who literally trusted each other completely. They built a system where every computer assumes every other computer is telling the truth. No verification, no authentication, just pure trust. In the next 15 minutes, you're going to understand exactly why every single security problem you've ever heard about exists, because the internet's foundation is basically everyone's honest and nobody would ever lie. And why? We're still dealing with the consequences of that incredibly naive assumption 50 years later. Here's what's really happening when you use the internet today. You log into your bank account, you type your password. Behind the scenes, your computer is sending that password across the internet through dozens of different computers owned by companies you've never heard of. Each one of those computers could theoretically read your password. They could copy it, they could modify it, they could redirect you to a fake banking site. The only thing stopping them is additional security layers we've frantically added on top of the internet over the decades. Picture this scenario. You're at Starbucks using their Wi-Fi to check your Gmail. Your email travels from your laptop to the coffee shop's router to your internet provider to Google's servers. At every single hop along that journey, someone could intercept and read your messages, not because they're sophisticated hackers, just because that's how the internet fundamentally works. It was designed to pass messages along openly, assuming nobody would peek. Think about it this way. Imagine if the Postal Service worked by giving your letter to a stranger and saying, "Please pass this to the next person till it reaches its destination." No sealed envelopes, no tracking numbers. Just hand your letter to someone and trust that they'll forward it honestly. That's basically how the internet works at its core. We've added envelopes encryption, but the underlying system still just passes data from computer to computer while hoping nobody looks inside. Everyone tells you to use strong passwords and be careful online, but that's not what actually needs to happen. What really needs to happen is rebuilding the internet from scratch with security built in from the start. But we can't do that. Too late, too many devices, too much infrastructure. So instead, we keep adding band-aids on top of a fundamentally insecure system. And those band-aids keep failing because they're fighting against the internet's core design. And this matters because you're trusting your personal information, your financial data, your private communications to a system that was never meant to be secure. It's not just about getting hacked once. It's about living in a digital world built on technology that assumes everyone is trustworthy when clearly they're not. Every data breach, every ransomware attack, every phishing scam exists because we're using infrastructure designed for a world that never existed. And that's exactly what happens when you build systems based on optimistic assumptions about human nature. The internet handles about 3.5 billion users today, transmits about 5 billion gigabytes of data daily. And every single byte of that data is traveling through a system designed in 1969 for maybe 20 computers at 4 universities where everyone knew each other personally. They didn't build in security because, in their world, security wasn't needed. Everyone was a trusted colleague. So let me show you something. There's this principle I call the academic paradise delusion, and it explains everything wrong with internet security. The people who designed the internet were researchers at universities working on government contracts. Their goal was sharing research data between academic institutions. In their world, everyone was smart, educated, and working toward common scientific goals. Why would anyone abuse the system? Why would anyone lie about who they are or steal data? It's like building a house where all the doors are unlocked because you live in a tiny village where everyone knows everyone and crime doesn't exist. That works great until your village becomes a city of millions of strangers. But you can't retrofit locks onto doors that were designed without them. You have to work around the fundamental architecture. That's what we've been doing with internet security for decades. This matters because every security measure you use online is fighting against the internet's core protocols. HTTPS encryption? Added later because the original HTTP protocol sent everything as readable text. Password authentication? Bolted on because the original system assumed you wouldn't lie about your identity. Firewalls? Necessary because the internet was designed to let any computer talk to any other computer without questioning motives. Think about the team working on ARPANET in the late 1960 seconds. There were maybe a dozen researchers total. They were all at prestigious universities. They all had security clearances because they were working on Defense Department projects. If Bob at UCLA sent a message to Alice at Stanford, Alice trusted it was really from Bob. Why wouldn't it be? They're both vetted researchers. The system didn't need to verify Bob's identity because Alice knew Bob. Your brain struggles with this because you're used to building security from the start. You lock your car, you lock your house, you don't leave your wallet sitting on a park bench and hope nobody takes it. But the internet was built by people who'd never experienced digital crime because digital crime didn't exist yet. They couldn't imagine a world where millions of malicious actors would be trying to exploit their system. But here's where it gets interesting. The fundamental protocols of the internet, TCP, IP, DNS, email protocols, they all operate on trust. When your computer connects to a website, it asks a DNS server, what's the address for google.com? The DNS server responds with an IP address. Your computer just believes it, no verification, no checking if the DNS server might be lying. It could send you to a fake Google site and your computer would happily connect. This is why DNS poisoning attacks work. Hackers compromise a DNS server and make it lie about addresses. Your computer asks for your bank's address, gets sent to a fake banking site that looks identical, and you type in your password without realizing. The internet's core design has no mechanism to prevent this. We've added DNSSEC, DNS security extensions, but it's optional and many networks don't use it because it requires extra work. Now, this next pattern is particularly sneaky because it involves email. Email is maybe the best example of the internet's trust problem. When you get an email that says it's from your boss, your email client shows you from boss@company.com in the header. But here's what nobody talks about. Anyone can put anything in that. From field, it's not verified, it's not authenticated, it's just text that the sender typed in. Pay attention to this. The email protocol, SMTP, was designed in 1982. The people designing it literally couldn't conceive of someone sending an email pretending to be someone else. Why would anyone do that? It seemed absurd. So they made the from field editable. Like putting a return address on a letter, sure, you write it yourself, but why would you lie? In their academic world, lying about your identity was unthinkable. This is why phishing works so well. Hackers send emails that look exactly like they're from Amazon, your bank, the IRS, your CEO. Your email client displays whatever, from address the hacker typed in. We've added SPF, DKIM, DMARC authentication systems to verify senders. But they're optional, complicated to set up, many organizations don't use them properly. And your email client might not check them anyway. And here's what makes this even more surprising. The internet's routing system, BGP, Border Gateway Protocol, also runs on pure trust. BGP is how routers tell each other how to forward data across the internet. When a router announces, I can reach these IP addresses, all the other routers just believe it. No verification, no authentication, just trust. In 2008, Pakistan tried to block YouTube domestically. They announced via BGP, all YouTube traffic should come to us. But they accidentally announced this to the entire internet, not just Pakistan. For several hours, YouTube traffic from around the world got routed to Pakistan's servers where it died. Pakistan didn't hack anything. They just made an announcement and the whole internet believed them because that's how BGP works. And if you think that's wild, check this out. There's almost no concept of identity built into the internet's core protocols. IP addresses, the numbers that identify devices on the internet, can be faked. It's called IP spoofing. You just tell your computer to claim it's a different address. Some networks filter this, many don't. The protocol itself has no mechanism to verify you are who you claim to be. This is like if phone numbers didn't actually identify phones. Someone calls you, caller ID says it's your bank, but it could be anyone claiming to be your bank because the phone system doesn't verify. Oh wait, that happens too. Caller ID spoofing is trivial because the phone system also wasn't designed with security in mind. Same trust-based architecture as the internet. Let me blow your mind for a second. Here's the uncomfortable truth about internet security that nobody wants to admit. We've spent billions of dollars and countless hours adding security layers on top of the internet. Encryption, authentication, access controls, intrusion detection, but we're always playing defense because the attackers are working with the internet's design behavior while we're fighting against it. What's actually happening is that hackers exploit how the internet was designed to work. They're not breaking the rules, they're following rules that shouldn't exist. When someone spoofs an IP address, they're using a feature of the protocol. When someone poisons DNS, they're exploiting the system's trust model. When someone sends a phishing email, they're using email exactly as designed, just lying about their identity because the protocol never thought to verify it. This isn't about individuals being careless with passwords. It's about fundamental architectural decisions made in 1969 by people who literally could not imagine a hostile internet. They built a system for trusted colleagues to share data. We're using it for billions of strangers, conducting financial transactions and sharing sensitive information. It's like using a garden hose to fight a forest fire. The tool was never meant for this purpose. And it's the reason why new security vulnerabilities get discovered constantly. We can't fix the foundation without rebuilding everything. So we keep stacking security measures on top of insecure protocols. Each new layer introduces new complexity. New complexity creates new bugs. New bugs become new vulnerabilities. It's an endless cycle because we're working against the grain of the system's design. Let me tell you about two companies dealing with security. We'll call them TechStart and DataCorp. TechStart is a startup built in 2020. Their founder, Rachel, learned about the internet's trust problem in computer science class. She's terrified of it. So TechStart implements every security measure possible. Two-factor authentication, encrypted everything, zero trust architecture where every connection must be verified. They treat every network as hostile because that's reality. Rachel spends probably 30% of her development budget on security. Her team complains it slows them down. Security audits take weeks, but Rachel knows that one breach could destroy her company. So she fights against the internet's trustful nature by assuming everything is a threat. She doesn't trust DNS responses, she doesn't trust email headers, she doesn't trust IP addresses. Her systems verify everything multiple times because the internet won't do it for her. Now compare that to DataCorp. DataCorp started in 1995. Their CTO, Michael, remembers when the internet felt safer, simpler. He implements basic security passwords, some encryption, but fundamentally trusts that networks work as intended. After all, they've been using the same systems for 25 years. DNS works, email works. Why overcomplicate things? When someone in accounting clicks a phishing link, DataCorp's entire network gets hit with ransomware. The attackers came in through that one click. Once inside, they moved laterally across the network because DataCorp's internal systems trusted each other. Why wouldn't they? They're all on the company network. Michael's company loses $2 million recovering from the attack, not because Michael was stupid, because he worked with the internet's trust model instead of against it. Notice how Rachel's paranoia saved her company while Michael's reasonable assumptions destroyed his? That's because the internet punishes trust. The system was built for a high trust environment that no longer exists. Rachel succeeds by treating the internet as hostile. Michael fails by treating it as the designers intended. That fundamental understanding separates protected systems from compromised ones. Here's what most people don't realize. So what's really going on here? It's not actually about needing better passwords or smarter users. It's about using infrastructure designed for a fundamentally different world. The people who build secure systems don't trust the internet's protocols. They understand that everything must be verified, authenticated, encrypted because the underlying system provides none of that. And once you see it this way, everything changes. These patterns aren't about technical expertise or expensive security software. They're about understanding that the internet was designed for trust in a world of strangers. Every security measure exists to fight the system's intended behavior. You can't fix it. You can only work around it. But now that you understand the internet's core design assumes honesty and trust, you can see why security is so hard and breaches are so common. So here's what we've uncovered. The internet's core protocols assume all devices tell the truth about their identity and intentions. DNS, email, routing, they all operate on trust with no verification. Security measures like encryption and authentication were added decades later as band-aids. The internet was designed by researchers for trusted colleagues, not for billions of strangers. And every security problem exists because we're using trust-based infrastructure in a world full of malicious actors. The question isn't whether the internet's foundation is insecure. It absolutely is. The question is whether you'll recognize that every security measure you use is fighting against the system's design behavior. Because now you know the internet was built to trust everyone completely. That 20 researchers in 1969 couldn't imagine a hostile internet. That everything we do for security is compensating for architectural decisions made for a world that never scaled beyond academia. You can't unknow it. So next time you see a security breach in the news, ask yourself, did someone find a clever exploit? Or did they just use the internet exactly as it was designed, trusting responses, spoofing identities, passing along malicious data in ways the original designers never imagined? Because once you see that the internet's foundation is trust everyone, those breaches stop looking like failures of security and start looking like the inevitable result of using a trusting system in an untrustworthy world.